everybody. So let's talk about rounding. Now, we covered rounding probably months ago, back in like September and October. So I know that it maybe isn't really fresh in your mind. So that's why we're gonna do this little video and hopefully jog your memory and you'll be a rounding expert. So whenever I talk about rounding, what that means is that I am changing the number that I have to a friendly number that's easier to work with. So friendly numbers are numbers that usually end in 0. And the reason that we want to change numbers to a friendly number is because it makes it easier to do mental math and it makes it easier to estimate, especially when we're adding or subtracting things. So for 3rd grade, you are only expected to know how to round to the nearest 10 or to the nearest 100. So that's what we're going to practice and review today, rounding to those numbers, okay? So let's say that I have a number like 86, okay? And I want to round it to the nearest 10. Well, whenever I'm thinking about rounding to the nearest 10, the first thing I have to do is decide which place value I'm talking about. So since I'm rounding to the nearest 10, I want to circle my tens place, okay? And that's the digit that is going to change. But to decide what to do with it, am I gonna change it or am I gonna leave it the same? I have to look at the digit to the right. So I'm gonna draw a little arrow to remind myself that this is my bossy number. It tells me what to do. Well, that number is a 6. Do you remember what a 6 tells me to do? Well, if you've ever heard this little saying, I'm sure you remember. 4 or below, let it go. That means let that number go, it'll stay the same. 5 or above, give it a shove. So 6 is above a 5, right? Yeah, so I need to give that 8 a shove and turn it into a 9. And anything that comes after my circle becomes a 0. So 86 rounded to the nearest 10 is 90. Is it coming back to you now? Are you remembering? Good. Let's try rounding 1 to 100. Okay, let's round to the nearest 100. So let's say that I have the number 234. Well, this time I'm rounding to the nearest 100. So what place will I circle? Right, I'm gonna circle the hundreds place. Okay, and then my next step to determine what to do with that is I look at the digit to the right, my bossy digit, and it's a 3. What do I do? What does the 3 tell me to do? 4 or below, let it go. 5 or above, give it a shove. Well, a 3 is below 4, so that means I'm just gonna let that 2 go. I'm not gonna change it at all. It's gonna stay a 2. And then what happens to anything after my circle? Right, it becomes a 0. So 234 rounded to the nearest 100 is 200. Let's try a couple more. All right, let's round this number to the nearest 10. There we go. 846. And I want to round it to the nearest 10. So don't be fooled and think that just because it's a 3-digit number that I would circle the hundreds place. No, no. We want to circle the tens place because that's what we're rounding to. Look at my bossy digit to the right and I see that it's a 6. Oh, 5 or above. 6 is above that, so I'm going to give this 4 a shove. So my 4 is going to be shoved and turned into a 5, okay? When I say give it a shove, that means we're just moving it up 1 number. All right, anything after my circle becomes a what? A 0. And then anything before my circle doesn't change. So 846 rounded to the nearest 10 is 850. All right, let's try one more. All right, this time let's round to the nearest 100. All right, 392. Okay, so since I'm rounding to the nearest 100, what place will I circle? Right, the hundreds place. Okay, I'm then gonna look at my bossy digit to the right, which is a 9. A 9 definitely tells me to give it a shove. So 3, if I shove it, it becomes a 4. And anything after my circle becomes a 0. So 392 rounded to the nearest 100 is 400. All right, I hope that helps jog your memory and you remember this really well. What you're gonna do after this is there's a puzzle piece right below, a little assessment, and you can take that.